Welcome to another episode of Vision 2060. I'm your host, Samriddhi Shur, and today we will talk about innovation across borders, building the US India innovation ecosystem. And I'm honored to have with me today Daryll Woolfolk, or as you may know him, Butch. Butch is a distinguished public diplomat currently serving with the United States Foreign Service. With a deep commitment to fostering international cooperation, he has been instrumental in strengthening relations between nations, promoting cultural exchanges, and representing U.S. interests abroad. His work is characterized by insight, integrity, and a passion for public diplomacy. And beyond his professional role, he is known for his leadership, his ability to connect diverse communities, and his dedication to making diplomacy accessible and meaningful to people from all walks of life. Hi, Butch. It's so nice to have you with us today.
Hi, Sam. How are you? And it is my pleasure to be reconnected with you after all this time.
That's very kind of you. I'm doing well. I hope you're having a good time in Switzerland.
Yeah, it's hard not to have a good time in Switzerland, to be honest.
Oh, yes, it's definitely a heaven on earth. So, today we will be talking about mostly you and your life's journey and how you actually got into the space of public diplomacy and just in general about how we can foster a better innovation ecosystem between India and the US. And I think US has been one of those nations which have been the torchbearers in a lot of different sectors of different industries. And I think the collaboration between the India and the US has always been there on various different fronts when it comes to innovation. But I would really love to know what is your perspective in all of this, how exactly we can foster a better collaboration between the two nations and work with each other to take humanity in general forward. So that brings me to my first question. And I think it goes without saying that you've had a very unique journey throughout your career. And from serving as a veteran to now representing the US as a public diplomacy officer, I would love to know like what has inspired that transition and how has your past experiences shaped the way you approach diplomacy today?
Hmm. That's a great question, and thank you for it. My service now as a Foreign Service officer and most of my adult life as a soldier has really been about service. I come from a family that is dedicated to service. My father served in the U.S. Air Force for 30 years. I had a number of family members who were public servants in one way or another. And serving the country has always appealed to me. And so when I was coming to the end of my service in the Army, I wanted to continue to serve the country, and I had a number of colleagues who encouraged me to apply for the Foreign Service. And as you can imagine, just like the Indian Foreign Service, it's a rigorous path to get into the Foreign Service. But I was fortunate enough to be selected. Yeah, here I am, and I
Amazing.
had the privilege of serving in, I think, probably the most dynamic relationship that the United States has, not only now, but going forward as we project into the future. And for me, my experience in the Army as a soldier, my experience as a child growing up around the military, around service, shapes how I approach my own service to the country now. It makes me curious, it makes me look for opportunities to experience different things while serving my country. And that's the way I approach it.
And that's very inspiring for sure. Do you see that going forward, there would be, since you have served in New Delhi as well, is there any way that in which New Delhi, which is a vibrant mix of tradition and modernity, it has become part of how you now approach a lot of different areas of public diplomacy or when it comes to innovation? Because India has its own culture in a way. Since you've been here, you've seen us work in general, us Indians. What is your most memorable part of that experience where you felt that this is, oh, this is very Indian? And that also made you feel connected to India in some way, just reflecting back on your experience here.
Yeah, that there are so many examples, Sam, of being connected to India in very serious ways and also in some humorous ways. I'll share one with you that was quite humorous. When we first moved to Delhi, I remember seeing a person on a bicycle, and he had a trailer connected to his bike, and he was pedaling on one of the flyovers, or what we call an overpass, you guys call a
Right.
flyover. And behind him, he had this big bundle of reinforcing bar, rebar. It's construction material.
Good.
And this stuff is so heavy. You should carry it in a truck, right? And you
Right.
should lift it onto the truck with a big forklift, and there's a lot of heavy machinery. And here's this guy on a bicycle with this rebar strapped to his bike, and he's making it happen. And I was just fascinated by watching that because it to me it was indicative of India in a way that says, hey, I've got to do this thing, and these are the tools that I have to do it with, and so I'm just going to make it happen. And I had that experience so very often in India where things needed to happen, and there was just somebody that says, hey, I'm going to make it happen with whatever tools I have. And so as I got more involved in my job, and I met you through our innovation hub, I actually met you through something else and then invited you to apply to our innovation hub. I was struck repeatedly by that sense of these are the things that need to happen. We need to solve this problem. And so somebody is going to step up and do it. And they may not have a lot of money, they may not have a lot of support, and they've got an idea and they do it. And that so inspired me. And it's what one of the things that made me protective of the Nexus program, because it was constantly being rejuvenated by people like you who saw a need and just did it. And I was very honored and happy to be part of that journey to help sponsor it and keep the program going. And I'm happy to say that Nexus is still going strong. And I think it's a really good news story in our relationship between our two countries.
Oh, definitely. I think our own journey of meeting each other at the walkthrough, which was, I remember, in the US Embassy, it was for, if I'm not wrong, something to do with sustainability and waste management.
Hmm.
And I was just invited by someone else very randomly because it was the very next day. Somebody said that, oh, there's this walkthrough happening in the US Embassy. Do you want to come? And I said, that sounds good. It's a good initiative. Yes, let's see. And there it was serendipity that I met you. And I didn't know who you were. We just have a conversation. You walked with me throughout the walkthrough, and I had the worst choice. I remember I wore heels for a walkthrough because it would be yes, I really thought it would be a short walkthrough. Like, how big could an embassy be? And
Right.
I did not expect it to be that big, and it was. And I remember you walking with me by my side because I was too slow to keep up with the rest of the group. Oh my God. And I think that was for me a point where it was a human to human connection. That's that was the, and I was happy that I had an extra pair of shoes in the car, which we just changed and came back. And then you were still there. And that was such a big thing, I think. And after that, we met in the American Center. We spoke about the innovation program Nexus, and you sold it in such a way that I was like, yes, this is something that I must do. And I think that these kind of programs, they don't just foster cultural ties between people, they can go much beyond that, because it didn't stop there for me. I was taught about so many things, but at the same time I was able to build connections with my own counterparts here in India. I
Hmm.
also got a chance to be part of the IVLP program after that, which is this amazing program where you get to meet all these young leaders and all the great people back in America who are doing so much in so many different sectors. I think my topic was about critical and emerging technologies. And I think
Yep.
that was also something that happened because of you. I never got a chance to formally thank you. So thank you very much for giving me that opportunity or helping me get that opportunity. It was one of the best experiences that I've had so far. And it got me closer to what US actually is. I actually got to
Hmm.
see that with my own eyes and experience that. But yes, it does bring back a lot of memories. I think the kind of work that the embassy here in India, the US Embassy, is doing, it's amazing. Fostering cultural ties and building human to human collaboration opportunities. It's just offering those kind of opportunities, something so amazing to me. But yes, coming back to the podcast, what I mean, you walk down the memory lane, you just keep talking about that. So yes, like coming
That's
back,
a great memory for
yes,
sure.
it is. It is. It is for sure. For me, definitely it is. Yes. So my next question for you is, now that India has one of the fastest growing innovation ecosystems, there are several programs like you've mentioned about Nexus, one of the innovation programs by the American Center here in Delhi. And there are many more when you go across the country, spread across everywhere. And I think you have seen a lot of them. We recently saw a post about a space program that was there as well
Yeah.
to promote education. All these things are going on at the same time. Do you ever think that there's something specific which was like truly impressive or something that stuck with you? Maybe when you met an entrepreneur, a young entrepreneur, or when you were visiting a tech hub that just stayed with you even today after a long time. I think it has been a year since you were last here in India.
Yeah, I left Delhi in August of 2024 and spent a year back in the US preparing for my next assignment. It's been some time, and I feel like the further I get away from New Delhi, I don't know, it's just there's a connection that we formed, my wife and I, that we formed in Delhi that we hope will never be broken, just with people, but with the place. I don't know if I'll ever serve in India again, but there's just something about that place that I want to stay connected to throughout the rest of my life. Thank you for sharing that memory as well. That was a funny day. But it's indicative of how I think public diplomacy really is supposed to work. Public diplomacy is about connecting people and people from different backgrounds, different cultural experiences. And as a public diplomacy officer, it's my job to make those connections in whatever space I find myself in, right? So whether it's at the embassy or whether it's meeting someone randomly out and about, I'm always a public diplomacy officer. I'm always representing my country and my mission to people. And it's something that I take quite seriously because I might be the only American that someone will meet. And even in my current job here in Switzerland, I could be the only American that a Swiss person would meet or someone else coming to the embassy. Now, it's highly unlikely, especially given the connections that Americans have across Europe, that's going to happen, but it could. And so I approach my job that way, that I want to represent my country as in the best way possible. And so back to your question, there's a memory I have. It was the first Nexus entrepreneur that I met, Jasmeet Kaur. And Jasmeet was one of the early Nexus pioneers. And she is still, but she was overseeing a process or a company that takes waste and turns it into useful things. So it runs a gamut from rice stubble into something that can be used for fuel, everyday garbage that can be processed, broken down, and made into filler for construction sites. And when I went to the plant site that they have there in Delhi, I was just struck by the innovation behind that. And as I talked to Jasmeet, I could tell that I was talking to a really intelligent person. She's smarter than two people put together. But she was also very humble. And she was also very appreciative of the opportunity that she has been given to do something positive for her country, for her city, and for her people. And that kind of shone through. And I'm fortunate to say that Jasmeet is still a friend. We talk from time to time, and I just check in on her to see how she's doing. She's been a TEDx speaker and all of this. But every time I interact with Jasmeet, it's still that same humble, hardworking, very intelligent young lady that I met the first time when I first got to Delhi. And yeah, her success has not gone to her head. And I'm always struck by that. And that's something that's common with the entrepreneurs that I got to know in India. That includes you, Sam. Your success has not gone to your head. You're still grounded. You're still looking for that next new thing that can push innovation forward. But it's not about you. It's about making your surroundings, making your country, making your city a better place. And I think that's a lesson that a lot of people can learn, both in the entrepreneur world and across different work areas.
That's very do say. Thank you so much. I personally feel that success is a subjective term for everyone. As of now, I still feel that there is so much for me to do. I would consider myself as truly successful when I would have made some significant contribution to the science that would help the humanity progress at least one step further than where it is today. For me, I think this is something we are still working on and it never rests. And actually, my grandmother used to say so. She had this poem and she used to tell this to me. And I'll share this with you and for the sake of the podcast and to make it interesting. Good, better, best. Never let it rest till your good is better and your better best.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just this whole philosophy just stuck with me. And I used to be like 5 year old when she used to teach me these things. When I would say, "Oh, see, I'm better than you," to my younger
Hmm.
sister or something like that, then she would tell me that, "No, you're not. Just keep working on that."
Yeah,
So
that's grandparent wisdom.
yes, it stuck with me. Good, better, best. Yes.
Yeah, I'll have to write that down because I'm a grandparent now, so I make sure that my granddaughter knows that not to get too far ahead of herself.
Oh, I'm sure she'd do great. Having you as a grandfather is already a lot of inspiration,
Oh,
wisdom
you're too
that
kind.
sits on dinner table. So I think she's good. But going forward on our conversation, my next question for you would be about what are some of the areas you've worked across so many different sectors. You have seen so many different innovation areas while you were here in the American Center and you've met so many of us. I'm sure you've
Hmm.
heard many different ideas from several different peoples, and not just here in India, but I'm sure across the world. So, what are the few areas that you feel that would be most exciting for in US and Indian entrepreneurs and innovators to work together in the coming years? Would it be clean energy, AI, or space exploration? There are many avenues, but if you would have to narrow it down to some of the few sectors, which one do you think has the most potential?
Oh gosh, that's such a hard question because they all hold
Yeah.
such promise. And that brings me back to the post that I shared with you on LinkedIn yesterday that had just been reshared by a gentleman who I grew to admire very much, Sachin Bamba. He's also one of the smartest people I've ever met, and he's passionate about everything space and space exploration and space education. So we hit it off, two space nerds. We hit it off early on in my time in Delhi. And so that was a kind of a passion area for me, space science and space education, because I had the privilege of growing up when the United States was in the Apollo program, and I remember watching the astronauts land on the moon. I actually saw that on television. It's not a rebroadcast. That tells you how old I am. But it informed my childhood in such profound ways because I'm always looking up to the sky. Whenever we move, I always take my telescopes with me and I start searching around for the best place to set up my telescope so I can look at the sky. And people say the moon, it's the moon. It doesn't change. It does because it changes all the time depending on where you are, where it is. Anyway, back to your question. There are so many areas that our two countries can not only collaborate bilaterally, but can lead the world in. And I think AI is going to be one of those because, and this is my fervent hope. I think India and the United States see AI as a positive tool, not as something that to be dominated and then used for malpurposes, to use it for the betterment of our societies and the world as a whole. And so when you have two strong democracies who are working together on that technology and trying to make technological breakthroughs, I think it's a positive thing. And I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know if I know enough about AI to speak intelligently on it, but it just seems like one of those natural fit areas for our two countries to work together. Obviously, space exploration, we just had the successful launch of NISAR that we had been anticipating for such a long time, and I wish I had been there. I actually got up to see that launch because it was, again, it was one of those things that we had been looking forward to for such a long time, and there had been some technical delays with the satellite and with the rocket, but we finally brought it all together. And it's such a cool thing that our two countries worked together on that. And we sent the most sophisticated satellite up into space, and it's up there mapping our planet in real time. But I also think that the future of space exploration through the Artemis program that India is now a part of, I think will just pay great dividends for humanity. I think Artemis is it's one of those game-changing things that countries are going to do together to move our species forward. And just like we explored the oceans on our own planet, we have to explore space. We don't have a choice because humanity needs to expand from beyond Earth. And we can do that in competitive ways or we can do that in collaborative ways. And I think through something like Artemis, we are choosing to be collaborative and we're choosing to partner with like-minded nations who see space exploration as something that can benefit all of humanity, not just one country or a small group of countries. Those two things, and obviously clean energy, we need to find a better way to power our planet. We're always going to need energy. That's just a basic fact of life and science. It's better if it's clean, and so we need to get about finding the cleanest version of it that we can. Yeah, all three of those I think are areas that we can collaborate and partner in, and I think it's going to be an exciting future for us together.
No, definitely. These are all the areas I am very much enthusiastic about. I think it's no mystery as of now, even for some of the listeners who are there in this podcast. We have recorded 4 podcasts so far before this, and every single one of them, this, and it doesn't really matter if it was relevant or not. I think we have a reference of Star Wars. So I think I have made it very clear that I am very much enthusiastic about the topic of space. And I've always been. Space has one of those areas. If I haven't been an entrepreneur and working in this industry where I am, also contributing to space as of now, I feel that I would have been an astrophysicist, which was some
Hmm.
of my, so it was a flip of a coin decision. And it shows this. But in any case, I think space has always fascinated me more than anything else. And even if you go to the website of particular podcast, you would see that we have a specific video, I would say, which talks about Kardashev scale. So Kardashev scale is basically about different tiers of human civilization. For example,
Hmm.
right now we are not even tier one civilization because tier one would mean that we would be utilizing all the energy resources available on Earth to generate maximum amount of energy. So that would be air, water, like the hydropower, solar flares that are there outside. So a lot of freely available energy. The second tier civilizations are able to utilize energy from their star, which is sun, and we cannot even think about that right now. And the third tier civilization can extract or utilize all the energy of its entire solar system. So there are like different tiers of civilization about how they harness available energy around them, which is freely available. So I think my personal goal as a child has been, how do we get to tier one civilization? How do we push humanity to that point? And I think it's very Star Wars. Again, fifth podcast reference. So yes, I definitely love space. And it has been no mystery that all the nations do come together to, specifically US and India, we have been working together on various different space programs as well. And this has been, I think I am biased towards it, but I do feel that this could be one of the areas where we can have the most amount of collaboration. But that being said, I think a lot of good work is taking place in AI. And this also brings me to my next question for you. And this is a very subjective question for you. So it's entirely your opinion on how you want to answer this. Because AI right now, it is something that can be used for good, mostly good, but it can be utilized by people who may not have the best interest for the masses at hand. And since US and India, the two biggest democracies in the world, how do we come together and make sure that the AI, which is being developed by so many different entities, organizations, individuals, it's developed in a way that it is responsible and is utilized for the best for of it, like for the best, I would say, purpose and with the best values for everyone, because the data that is it is being trained on is not exactly the best kind of data. We've had a very, I would say, unstable and chaotic history as well as a human civilization. So for the last 2000 years, if you take that up, democracy is only 200 years old or so, 300 years old. So how
Hmm.
do we make sure that the data on which the AI is being trained on has the best possible social values, so that in the future, if it is given charge to make decisions for us humans, it makes the right decision, which is morally, ethically, and legally.
Yeah. No, that's a great question. And I think the answer, at least from my perspective, is the same answer that I would give you about how do you make democracies work. Democracies only work when there's transparency. But when the aim of the activity is the betterment of the people as opposed to the aggrandizement of the few or an individual. And so transparency in the development of AI tools, transparency in the utilization of those tools, and transparency in the application of AI in our everyday lives is what's going to keep it honest. When we lose transparency, then that's when, bad things happen. And that's true not only in AI, but it's true in governance, it's true in personal relationships. If you're not transparent, then that's when malign actors can come in and use it for bad purposes. And we're human. And so, being human, we have to recognize that mo- more often than not, we have to check ourselves. We have to self correct. And so I think the more transparent we can be, the better chance we have of that self correction.
That's very true. And that's very rightly put as well. So I think this brings us to our second last question as well. So, what's the one piece of advice that you'd like to give to the young professionals and all the listeners that we have as of now for this podcast, who are looking to pursue a career in, let's say, innovation, in diplomacy, and maybe trying to make AI for the world, AI for good? So, what would be that one advice? I think that's a difficult advice to make as well, because
Yeah,
it's a lot of different groups who are listening to you.
I would give young people the same advice I give my sons. Be passionate about things that bring you joy. Be passionate about things that you enjoy doing and commit yourself to them. It doesn't mean you have to be the best. It doesn't mean you have to change the world. But if you're passionate about something that you enjoy doing, then your experience in that thing will be so much better. If you're just doing something because you think other people expect you to, or you think other people will be disappointed in you if you don't do that, you're not really committing your heart to it. And so find something that you're passionate about or that you care about and dedicate yourself to that. But also be open to having things change. My personal example, I never thought that I would be a diplomat. Growing up, I always wanted to be a soldier. And guess what? I was a soldier for 40 years. And it wasn't until later in my professional life that I thought, hey, that diplomat thing is another way to serve. And so I'm going to pursue that. If you had asked me, oh, she was like, what's a diplomat? Because I had no frame of reference, but my life experiences helped me to broaden my horizons. Be passionate, be flexible, be curious about the world around you because you never know what that curiosity will uncover and what your curiosity may expose you to that you had no idea was out there. And those things I think I would recommend to anyone, not just young people, but anyone who wants to live life fully. Be curious, be passionate, and lastly, give yourself a bit of grace because I think we are so hard on ourselves sometimes, oftentimes, that I think extending ourselves a bit of grace will help us all just navigate life better. So those are my three things.
That's a very really nice advice. I think you're going to be very popular amongst Gen Z. And coming from personal perspective, those are all the things that we want to hear, but nobody tells us. No, seriously, this is something that we are trying to look for in the world, but nobody reinforces that. At least from an Asian perspective, I think there are a lot of cultural and societal expectations on the generation, the younger generations in general, and it has always been there. But I think times are changing now, and the youth really needs to follow what they really want to do if we want actual change in terms of just not just technology, but in different areas of life. If we
Hmm.
want, and that's actually a great advice. I loved it personally. This is something, it was a great advice for me as well, I think. Yeah. Now I know why it was so easy to connect with you. You just make a very good Gen Z mentor.
You're too kind.
Not at all.
I'll be honest with you, Sam. My experience in India and being a public diplomacy officer in India really changed my perspective about a lot of things. Just the absolute joy that I had in interacting with the young people of India. That to me was it was an opportunity to experience something that I had never anticipated, and I never thought that I would have as much fun as I did in doing that. And obviously, the age gap was obvious, right? But just the energy that I feel like I stole from all of those young people that I had a chance to interact with, it kept me young. And so it just it made coming to work every day at the American Center so much fun because I would get to interact with these bright minds and their energy and their questions and just their activity, and it was really refreshing to be able to do that and to get paid to do that. Yeah, that was quite something.
I would say that you bring in a lot of energy, fresh perspective for us as well. Because I remember speaking with a lot of people, and not everyone stucks with you. Not everybody that you meet actually stays with you for as long as you have. And that is only possible when the person in front of you is coming in with a fresh perspective, bringing in something to the table. And it happens very rarely. And I think that you are one of those few leaders for us. And I'm not just saying it because I know you or because for the sake of this podcast, in general as well, I would want to make this compliment that you're one of those few leaders who actually connect with their people, no matter who they are. You connect with the community and you actually bring something on the table that is valuable to them, not just for their professional life, but also for their personal life. And that's very meaningful. And it's very rare as well because you don't meet a lot of people who come and talk to you and has no agenda at that point of time. You go beyond your current professional roles and you help people as well. And you help them on a very personal level. I don't know if I'm able to put it in words, but I just really want to say that meeting you and having you is one of the best things a person can do. If they have you in your if somebody has you in their life, that is a great opportunity for them to both learn and guides them in a very subtle manner. Thank you so much for being there and for being here today for this podcast. I hope that we can reach to as many listeners as possible who can actually take wisdom from your words.
Thank you so much for saying that. And again, Sam, it was serendipity that I got to meet you outside of the walkthrough for the embassy. And it has just, I'm glad that I've been able to help open some doors for you so that you can bring your talents in different areas and that I've helped to connect you to the U.S. mission in India and everything that has come after that. And I have to be honest, I think I may have told you that once you get connected to us, we're never going to get our hooks out of you. I hope you continue to stay connected to the mission in India, but also in a broader sense to the United States, because you are one of those people who has a bright future ahead of you. There's something about the arc of your life that is going to be significant. And I think it is such a benefit for the United States to have you connected to us because it's just going to reap dividends that I can't think about them right now, but I know that they're out there. And any part that I got to play in bringing that about for that future benefit, I'm happy about. And I'm just looking forward to seeing what comes next for you.
And that's very kind of you to say. Thank you so much for all your kind words. But yes, this brings us to the end of our podcast series. Thank you so much for joining us today. It was deeply insightful, and I really enjoyed our conversation today. And I hope you did too.
I
And
did.
yes, that's great. So, to our listeners, thank you so much for joining in and to the next episode of Vision 2060. Thank you so much.